And there are different schools of thought, right? And I think the most important thing for people to take away is that you need to be aware of your body and what works for you. And so when you were in the zone, did you have an experience of a connection between what you ate and how you performed?
There was actually one football season
Yeah.
where my sophomore year of high school where I tried out the zone diet.
Yeah.
And what I noticed was that because of my diet, I was able to have higher energy levels,
Right.
and thus that translated into having better focus. But I don't feel that it was so much a mental thing as I described earlier, where I'm playing basketball and I'm slipping into a state of unconsciousness.
Right.
I felt that that was something slightly different, but there are two different ways I achieved peak performance.
Right.
So,
And that was part of it.
Exactly. And what's good nutrition for athletes? The FDA obviously has regulations: 2,000 calorie diet,
Right.
Low protein, high carbohydrate.
Right.
So us as athletes, we all know that that doesn't work.
Right.
And that's not the best way to achieve peak performance. So what kind of diet should an athlete have?
Well, again, the basis should be that you have enough physical awareness to know what works for you. Clearly, there are some obvious things, like don't have simple carbohydrates such as sugar, stay away from anything white, right? And eat food with as many colors as possible. Therefore, you get all the nutrients and you feed your body in the way that's important. I do like to have my athletes have protein. If they choose not to have animal protein, then there are so many other ways you can get protein through nuts, through legumes. Those are also a great way to get protein. And of course, a lot of water is important. Keep yourself hydrated is essential. And another thing that is really important is understanding that you need to have enough calories. A lot of the teenage girls I work with a lot of them that are in what I call the performance arts sports, so figure skating, horse vaulting, dance, gymnastics, where their physical appearance plays an important part in their score. It's unfortunate, and yet it's part of the sport because it's a performance, it's an art. Therefore, the whole picture together, the way that it all looks, is what's judged. So it's easy for these girls, and even some of the boys, to believe that, oh, I can't eat very much because I can't get fat, right? And then there's also a physics component. If you're jumping, then the lighter you are, it's easier. So the thing that I always tell them is food is your friend. Food is your fuel. You need to have calories because you are expending a lot of calories with all the training you're doing. And just eat. Eat as often as possible, as long as you don't have the sugar, as long as you stay away from anything that's white or artificial. And you have good, healthy, real food, even organic if you can. And then start to pay attention to how your body responds. Then it's a good thing. So it's the thing I always instill is understanding that food is a great thing. Food is it helps your performance, and use it that way instead of building a fear around it. See it as something that is a real tool for you.
I think you touched on an important point, that is knowing your body. And
Right.
every athlete should know their body.
Absolutely.
A lot of people fall into the mistake of looking at someone else's diet and trying to take it upon their own,
Right.
when everybody has different caloric needs
Right.
and different nutritional requirements.
Right.
And every sport has a different emphasis. Some sports require long-term energy, such as long-distance running,
Right.
therefore your diet would change.
Absolutely.
And some sports require quick, short bursts of energy.
Right.
So I believe it's really important, what I found as an athlete, to really know your sport, know what you're doing,
Yep.
in order to maximize what you're doing, versus just copying off what other people do, because that's not always the best way.
Think for yourself.
Exactly.
Right? Know
And
yourself
having enough calories, like you said, is very important. When I played football, being big and muscular is a way to achieve better peak performance, as well as being fast.
Right.
Because you need mass in order to be forceful.
So now in football, it would also depend on the position you play, right?
Exactly.
Your particular
Exactly.
position and what's required for that. So if you're a linebacker, you need mass.
A lot more mass
Whereas if
than a
you're a
receiver
wide
would.
receiver, you need to be nimble and sinewy
Exactly.
and able to move fast. So your diet might differ. I'm also thinking that it's not just what you eat, it's when you eat and how much you eat, when you eat.
Exactly.
And it's so,
The
whether you
portions.
have, what kind of fruit. I mean, each piece of food has something special about it, has particular nutrients. And
Yeah, like you said, macronutrient profile was very important.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally didn't see any, I saw very slow growth from all the training I was doing
Oh, right.
until I had a caloric diet that was high enough
Mm-hmm.
to help me build muscle.
Right.
You know, I always thought that I could go to the gym, work out hard, and I expected to see results, but they were slow, and I didn't understand till I had a trainer to help me out,
Right.
and he gave me the nutritional requirements that I needed, and I was eating up to 4,000 calories a day. But
And using it.
exactly.
Yeah.
And in that 1 month, I was able to put up 30 pounds more on my bench
Right.
press,
Right.
gain about 5 to 10 pounds of muscle.
Right.
So you're having enough calories to meet the nutritional requirements is very important for
Absolutely.
performance and knowing what you need.
Absolutely.
And then
And maybe even using resources, like you used a coach, you used a
Exactly.
trainer, finding a nutritionist if you need it, talking to your doctor, building your team around you of people that support you in your excellence, and using them, asking for help, asking for extra knowledge, reading, informing yourself. Because ultimately, when you're out there playing with your team or when you're out there running with the ball, it's just you and your sport. You are ultimately responsible. So that's what you're doing, is building your personal responsibility and your personal power.
And a lot of athletes also fall into the mistake, or people in general, of falling into fad diets, like the
right.
cabbage soup diet and the
Right.
keto diet. And I think that another thing that people should focus on is sticking with the basics and sticking with things that are proven to work,
Right.
not fads that are around for 3 years and then they'll resurface 15 years later.
Right. And I think also eating real food, whole foods,
Definitely.
and a variety of foods, and colorful food.
Exactly.
I mean, you can't go wrong if you do that, right?
And
And
then
if you're hungry, eat.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And how does mental performance and nutrition translate to some of the athletes you've had?
I've had some really fabulous clients that have made huge changes, and it's all of it. It's the mind, it's the body, it's their whole life. It's getting themselves into the knowledge that their self-esteem comes from their effort. So their self-esteem is effort-based, not outcome-based. And that really is true peak performance, is being in that moment, which is being in the zone, and knowing how to create that. Specifically, I work with a lot of figure skaters. That's my background. I coached for over 25 years and skated myself all throughout my childhood. And I can think of many skaters that have had some wonderful examples. Just on a very simple level, I have one who she came to me, and she's a very talented skater, very strong, and had just sort of decided that she wasn't very good. And her mother and her coaches and everybody was telling her, oh, but you're so good, you've got this talent, you've got this potential. And she just sort of had a simple block between her and believing that. And she had created a way of thinking and a way of speaking about herself that was so negative. It was very, very interesting. So we simply started switching how she thought of herself, how she spoke about herself, how she presented herself, even how she held herself physically. Because how you hold yourself can affect how you feel about yourself. Right? If you smile a lot, you'll be happy. If you frown a lot, eventually you'll be unhappy. They've proven that, right? They've proven that with tests. And I did a lot of deep visualization with her. I put her on a visualization program, a daily visualization program. I taught her self-hypnosis and also made her stringent about her thoughts being positive and about her speech being positive. We did many other things as well, and I do a lot of conversational change, just that speaks to the subconscious mind while the person might think I'm actually talking to their subconscious mind. So we did some of that sort of change. And she emerged at the end of the season as a skater who was very confident, very self-reliant. She had defined for herself a program before each performance where she warmed up her mind, she warmed up her body, she was totally in control, she got into the zone every time. This is a 12-year-old girl.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And found joy in her sport. And that's the most important thing to me. She was happy and she found joy. And her performance was much, much more consistent than it had ever been. And every time she performs, she goes back and she says, okay, What can I learn from that? How can I do better the next time? So that's another way of not being